audiences want to see things that are new. I want to go see a story I've never seen before, and that's what we're betting on.
A good story will work across the globe. I know that. I'm pretty much sure about it.
There's this powerful sense that the audience want to connect to each other and connect to story.
It's such a nice spectrum of voices. There's something for everyone. Everyone loves Toronto and everyone loves TIFF.
As you join us today, we encourage you to reflect on the land that you're on and its history. We're located on the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Wendat, and the Haudenosaunee. The territory is within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant and is home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We're grateful to work on this land.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're delighted to have you here at the Sears Industry Conference at the 2023 Toronto International Film Festival Industry Conference. My name is Jason Anderson. I'm an international programmer here for the festival and the programmer for Shortcuts. It's a pleasure to introduce our next session, which is Dialogues with Fawzia Mirza and Andria Wilson-Mirza, the director and producer of The Queen of My Dreams, and Zarrar Kahn and Anam Abbas, the director and producer of In Flames. I was just going to say, like, one of my big objectives with Shortcuts with the program is to serve as an entry point to the festival for all these incredible filmmakers I get to see from Canada and all over the world. And it's been a real honor to help introduce their work to audiences here. And it's always a huge, huge thrill for me to see these talents return to the festival with really amazing directorial feature debuts. And that's very much the case for these two films and these two teams. So we're thrilled to hear from these director and producer teams about their respective journeys, from first steps with short films, including the short films we got the chance to play here at the festival, to developing and creating their first features. We'll also hear how they honed their scripts, found the collaborators and supporters they needed, and coped with the innumerable practical challenges they faced while protecting their creative visions. Our programming is made possible by the support of all our sponsors and partners. We'd like to thank our lead sponsor, Bell, our major sponsors, Bulgari, RBC, and Visa, our major industry supporters, Ontario Creates and Telefilm Canada, and our media partner, Variety. And that's all for supporting the Dialogues program. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Fawzia, Andria, Zarrar, and Anam. I want to start by saying, oh my God, so good to see you. Because it is, I mean, like I said, it really is, like, I'm feeling chills just because it really is like everything I hope for, to see teams like yours come back and kill it here. And I'm so pleased to see you. I don't know, I'm going to get weepy.
I'm a Pisces, so I will definitely cry. But right before we got on, we were just talking about, see, now I am crying. No. But it's so cool to be sharing space with these three people. Obviously, my producer and wife, but Zarrar and Anam. Anam has been in my life for so many years, and Zarrar is new but feels so familiar. And to have films from Pakistan and to feel and to be family, to be here talking to you about our careers and our journey, it's awesome.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so verklempt. We're gonna have to save some tears for later in the session too. We can't do it all now.
No, we're starting there. We're starting with the tears. Where
go
will
big
we
or go home.
We are in it.
But yeah, I think obviously I really want to hear about this, kind of the step by step. And it really is like to think about, the features that are here, which are really amazing. They really are like the culmination of like millions of little and big things all the way along this route. And I guess to start off, I would sort of love to hear from each of you about the sort of beginnings for you, I guess for film and sort of, kind of thinking of yourselves as people working in film, but also like storytellers and people who kind of did feel compelled to share stories and to share experiences. And we'll promise not to cry. Maybe if you feel like you're ready to if we can do it less verklempt. You start with Fawzia.
We'll see. I actually didn't start on the industry as a filmmaker. I started as a lawyer. I was a civil defense litigator for 3 years. I know, it's awful. Still paying off the loans. And I started acting because that was the thing I always wanted to do, but I was pursuing the law as a way to make my family happy. And so I started acting and then started writing because I didn't see roles representing me. And then, I made a short film called The Queen of My Dreams that world premiered at the Seattle International Film Festival in 2012. And I made that with the help of a friend. I did not know I was a filmmaker. Definitely, I did not know I was a director then. And I made that film as not a desire to be a filmmaker, but as a way to try to make sense of myself and my life, because I was trying to understand whether I could be queer and still be a Muslim and still love Bollywood ideals of romance and the fantasy of that world. And it was through making that short film that I realized, yes, I can. And also the power of art and the healing power of art, and that film saved my life. And so I thought, well, maybe there's something here and it can help save other people's lives as well. And that's really kind of what began the journey of like, oh, I'm a filmmaker, maybe, sort of, kind of.
You're all the way there. No, we can be unequivocal. And Andria, certainly everyone, and it's really one of the great things about people, making films and even programming films. We take all comers from all kinds of different, people have so many different pathways into this. I'd love to hear from Andria about sort of that beginning of kind of embracing this role that you're in now.
I mean, I think being a producer is an absolute gift, and I think there's something like that I see as very vocational about it. And I started in the business as an actor as well, and I think a big reason for that was because, this was 25 years ago, and as a woman, it was like, what do I do? There's no one what job can I have? And they were like, there. But what I realized was that as an actor, I was in these spaces and places where I was surrounded by all these incredibly talented artists who always needed resources, who had all of the talent and all of the skill and all of these ideas, but needed money, needed support, needed collaboration. And so that was how I found what I think is my life's purpose, which is connecting talented people with the resources and support and empowerment that they need to do what they do best. And that took me through a lot of different paths. I worked in the film festival space, including here at TIFF. I was the executive director of Inside Out, which is the LGBT film festival here in Toronto, which is how I met my incredible wife, Fawzia Mirza, when she brought her feature film that she wrote, Signature Move, Now I'm Gonna Cry, to Toronto in 2017, and that's how we met. So, I think for so many of us, like as Fawzia shared, and the path can be circuitous, but I think, I feel very grateful to be able to do this work every day, and making this film, which I'm so excited to talk about with y'all, was just the honor of my life. So thank you, Jason, for letting me say that into a microphone.
Oh, thank you so much. And the same to Zarrar. Just because I just think about the relationships I've had with many of you, and I just think about the first time I probably met Zarrar was in, I could say, France. We met in France. It was the first time at a festival, and I just thought you were. It just struck me just how much you love film, and you really I think that it shows in your work so much. I guess what was your sort of journey to kind of finding your sort of trajectory in this field?
I mean, for me, I came from theater, which is somehow even worse than film. But that was my undergrad degree, and my Pakistani parents are like, he's the third child, so the other's a doctor, the other one's a banker, this one can live his life. And I always loved storytelling. I love theater, I still miss it, but that whole like the curtain closing and us never getting to see that performance again, and that's where that performance ends and that's where that story ends. Real theater people love that nature of theater, and for me I was like, I'm gonna go home and watch the DVD of the play and pretend it's like the same experience. And I think that was kind of where it was like, okay, what's another form of storytelling that has elements of performance? And because I love working with actors. That's a big part that attracts me to this medium. And I did my theater undergrad in Canada. I grew up between Pakistan and Canada, and I worked for a year in Toronto for a now defunct film sales company. At that time, you know, I was attending TIFF and didn't really feel like voices like mine were represented or being supported. And I also still felt like a calling to Pakistan. I still had a strong connection to that because my family migrated at a young age, and I felt like there was unfinished business. So I'm like, I'm gonna go to Pakistan and make my first movie. And this was like, I was 23, and I'm like, I'm gonna make a feature. How hard could it be? I'm 32 now. My feature came out this year. So, you know, it took some time. I went back, and with my friends, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know anybody in the business. So I set up a theater production company, and with my friends, we staged a play that lost a lot of money, but people loved it. At least my mom told me that. And then we started making short films together. And those short films got better, and people started watching them all over the world, and I learned what aperture was. And then, you know, down the line, I met you at Clermont-Ferrand, which I can't pronounce, and I met Fawzia, and it's very weird to be on this stage with this team again, because the first time we met was during YYZ Shortcuts. That was the first time me and Fawzia met, and she was like standing right next to me, and so it's very weird to be back here. But yeah, it was a long and not traditional journey, but I feel like I got to make every single mistake through various short films. And I feel like making mistakes is such a part of growing as a filmmaker and growing as an artist. And I'm like grateful that I had the support to make those mistakes and kind of fail upwards, because, you know, people from my background and our backgrounds don't necessarily get to fail upwards. So yeah, that was my story. And I'm not gonna cry because I'm an Aquarius, we don't do that.
Classic.
And same for Anam. I mean, certainly, I mean, very accomplished in documentary, as a filmmaker yourself too. And sort of, I mean, what was your route to wherever we are? Maybe this stage, maybe not exactly, you know, metaphorically and literally.
Where are we?
Yeah.
The first thing I ever wanted to be was a sailor. So I think it didn't happen. I think it's always been a call to adventure for me. I moved to Canada when I was 18, and I went to U of T. I studied cinema. That was also a fluke. I took one elective that somebody else chose for me, because, you know, long story. And it was called Religion and Film. And I saw Bresson, I saw like a bunch of other stuff, and already I started becoming politicized. I think my entry into cinema always came from like, I grew up in Pakistan, I was born and raised there. What is this world? And then I moved back to Pakistan after film school again, because I did not feel like I had a space where I could just fully be myself. And then building a career in Pakistan, making films, was always, I think, me saying yes to people and answering that call to adventure, and that's guided my life and guided like intuition, guiding who I work with. And you know, Fawzia calling me from Karachi, this random person, like, hey, I want to make a doc, I need a shooter, do you want to do this? Like, I don't know who you are. Okay. My life changes in so many ways, and that's been, and even producing, like I never wanted to produce, I wanted to write and shoot and be a camera person, but it was like, hey, can you please produce this? And me saying yes, and just knowing in my heart what felt right. And so, and I'm a middle child, so again, it was just like, whatever, like no expectations. But I did promise my mom that I would only do documentary because she was like, what is this fiction world with its like, you know, lack of morality? And now we're doing fiction, so sorry, Mom, but you know.
I mean, she was right.
I know, I'm like, no.
Like, she's right.
Well, it is something, I think I love hearing stories from filmmakers about those sort of early experiences on set, early experiences writing, and then, I think that Zarrar's idea about the sort of failing upwards is so useful, because there are these sort of, there's just kind of this mistakes you have to make, you know, and if you kind of, of course, when you make them, might beat yourself up about it for a good while. But like the things to be open to that kind of learning, you know. And I think about that. I guess I was thinking about with Fawzia about the original Queen of My Dreams, which is, thematically, you know, connected to the feature, but it's an elaboration in many ways. I guess what your first step towards sort of, you know, kind of seeing yourself as a filmmaker, what was there hesitation about coming to that? What was the sort of, did it take a while to sort of feel like, oh no, this is something I can be doing?
I think the term filmmaker is something I've only embraced in the last few years, because I've always felt a bit like, I've always felt like an outsider, you know, whether it was because I was too brown or too hairy or too overweight or too loud. You know, I laughed, threw my head back and showed all my teeth, and my mom was like, stop it, you sound like an elephant, you know, or whatever, you know, like that kind of stuff. And I was also a middle child, so God, really talking about the trauma. But you know, so I was the kind of actor side of me was what I was trying. I was trying to be an actor. So I was like, okay, well, no one else will be, you know. And then I was gay, and then I was like Muslim, and then I was like all these things that were just like, ooh, what do we do with that? You know, people didn't know what to do with it. So as an actor, I was like, okay, well, I don't see that, so I'll just be that. And how do you make something? I don't know, but we'll figure it out, and we'll make it together. And I can find $50 to buy lunch for people and ask this person with a camera to do me a favor. And so it was always coming up from a perspective of like, we could just make this together rather than being a filmmaker making film. And even the first short film, it started as an art installation idea. And it was the friend who was like, we could make a movie. And I was like, what? But then by making that, it encouraged me to be able to be like, oh, well, I have these ideas, you know, and I comedy is, you know, kind of my background. And so I was like, oh, I have an idea for this script and this short and this. And so we would just make things together, but I never thought it was film. To me, film was something that was not a place for me. I didn't understand it as an accessible path or a possibility, or you know, it just wasn't something that made sense to me. And I was just doing comedy or making funny things, and it wasn't until maybe I made my first feature, and even then I was just like an actor making stuff and writing things. I don't know, maybe it was when I decided to direct this movie 3 years ago during the TIFF Writers Studio that I said, okay, I'm gonna stop acting. I'm gonna direct this movie. And that's when I focused. And I focused on making a film. But I've done a lot of things.
Quite a few before
There was
that,
a lot
too.
of short films that came, and a lot of short films that came after that. And I would say that so much of that is also finding those great collaborators, like my producer and wife, Andria, who helped me see that potential.
And I guess I'd love to. We can go there too. Like I talk about that because that's. It's just from my own experience. Start talking to directors about that sort of journey from those sort of early films to a feature, and then I realized, oh, it's not. And it's there's a bit of that fallacy. It's like there's no kind of like. Nobody does it alone, and you can't do it alone. And there's these sort of partnerships and collaborations are absolutely crucial to it. And I think so much what happens, ideally with filmmakers when they're first sort of finding their feet is to find people, right? And that's sort of so much about, you know, what I love to see and what I love to help sort of facilitate is any of that kind of making friends, finding peers, you know, finding friends. And I guess this is a long prelude to Andrea talking about the, kind of the beginning of this as a sort of, as a creative collaboration with Fawzia.
Yeah, I mean, I think, found our purpose through each other, which is what I hope all directors and producing teams kind of can experience. And when helping Fawzia and collaborating with her to find that path and understand her true power as a filmmaker, like that was a huge part of our journey, because I saw all of that potential and I saw a path forward, but there was no getting on that path until she could see it and feel it and be there herself. And so when she had that kind of breakthrough moment of, you know, yeah, maybe I could direct this film, we kind of, you know, neither of us went to film school, so we were like, let's make a bunch of shorts. And so many people helped us to get into that path and kind of figure out how we could get ourselves ready for what was to come if we were really going to make this feature together. And so, you know, we made this little short called Noor and Layla with some support from the CBC. We shot it during the pandemic, which was, you know, very challenging, and we learned so much working together and made that here in Toronto. Shot The Saeed Family, which of course came to TIFF in 2021, and I don't know, like 5 other shorts within a year and a half, something like that.
Yeah, it was basically like, I'm a director, now let's make 6 short films in 3 years.
Yeah.
The thing, strategy, I think, like,
Yeah,
the
it
thing that
was.
law school taught me
Yeah.
was how not to be afraid of information and how to organize it. And I think together it was like, well, okay, if you're gonna direct, what's our strategy?
That's right. How do we get to that place by this time so that while I'm back here putting the rest of the team together, bringing in all the amazing collaborators, I'm looking at Anam because she was absolutely integral to getting
Anam's
this
also
film
an
together.
EP on our feature.
You know, getting all of those key pieces in place, how do we make sure we're ready when that time comes? Because we can go out there and raise money and apply for funding and do all the things, but like, how do you feel ready and know you're ready? And so that was the path that we set ourselves on. And I hope we got there. I think we got there, but
You got there?
yeah.
I'm going to vouch for that. Again, unequivocal. and the same for, I mean, certainly there I want to return to too, because you know, hearing those stories. And I think, I mean, one thing I was going to say, because I think there is this sort of, again, a bit of a fallacy about, like, you know, and even thinking, oh, there's a short called Queen of My Dreams. There must be there's something to do with the feature. But like the idea that I find much more, I mean, more common, more valuable is that shorts is a way of kind of like finding ideas, you know, kind of developing ideas, developing craft, finding people. Like the shorts become this sort of route that kind of feeds the feature in a maybe more amorphous, but also sometimes very direct way. Like it's not like the sort of examples of like Whiplash or Short Term 12, where they really kind of clear map for that feature in that short film with the same name. Like I think there's something really, and I can see that certainly with Zarrar shorts like that. There's stuff that is happening in those films that, I mean, you're not making mini versions of the feature that you have in mind. You really are kind of testing things and finding ways that are kind of developing things that are going to be tools for when you come to the feature too. But we can talk about that, but also I'd love to hear about your kind of the beginning of this partnership too.
I mean, the beginning of this partnership was like, there's this incredible documentary that Anam made called Zan Showgirls of Pakistan.
Woo! Woo!
Flip the Zan after a while.
All right, well, I saw the early trailer. So I had the original title. I remember seeing that and being like, I have to work with her. What can I do to make this happen? And then I was touring with a play to Islamabad, the city that Anam lived in, and you attended, and we were able to talk. And, you know, both our perspective towards the creation of cinema as well as our taste overlap. And I find that to be really rare because, like, it's really important for us that we're creating cinema with a team that's like as diverse behind the camera as it is in front of the camera. And so it's just been this really incredible, fruitful relationship where like, I'm like, the only time we meet now is like on a red carpet or on a panel, you know, mostly because Anam's constantly traveling the world. So
She's a sailor.
yeah, the adventure is too much. And I'm like, please get Aeroplan. But yeah, for me, in terms of my shorts, like, I mean, I remember my partner being like, it feels like your shorts stitched together is like your cinematic universe that just ended up being your feature. Because by the time we came to my feature, so much of the scenes and the locations we were doing and the kind of things we were hoping to execute, I had already done once. So when I was making my feature, I had all this confidence of being like, yes, I'm gonna be on set for a long time, which is the main change. Yes, it's more money than I've ever had. Still not much, but more than I've had. But it wasn't like, oh, how am I gonna shoot on the beach when the hut's on fire, you know? Because I'm like, I've done fire before, and I've been on the beach before. So, you know, this is all feasible. So that's why I'm like a huge encourager of shorts as a way, as its own art form, which I love and appreciate, but also as a way for filmmakers to experiment, because it really helped prepare me into my feature. And I know so many first-time filmmakers feel like really overwhelmed, but like I was like, oh, I just want to be on set, you know, like I'm so excited. And then the other side of that, when speaking about collaborators, is me and my team, we grew together. I found an incredible producer, Carol Nerona, who also produced Queen of My Dreams.
And might be in the audience.
Yeah. I don't know if she's Carol, I want to say hi. And Farjad Akhtar, first AD, and like we all kind of like were able to grow together from short to short. And I think there's so much beauty in growing with your team as artists as well. But yeah, finding your people is definitely a process.
That's great. And I guess sort of for Anam to talk about kind of, one thing maybe thinking about too is like, you know, we were joking about this a bit backstage about the kind of the balance of personality. I mean, the sort of like, you know, the things that you discover that you know, maybe don't like doing as much and you can leave to the other person. I mean, like what the process was like that with Zarrar, kind of finding your kind of that balance, the yin and yang of it. Like, what was that process like?
Really easy and smooth.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, I think it's just a really strong level of trust, even though, I mean, I think we just, you know, we were in different cities, different parts of the country, kind of just knew each other through the work, but knew the work well enough to have like that solid foundation to be like, yeah, you do your thing, you do the thing, and just, even now, we need to hang out more.
Yeah. You guys all heard it here first.
But I do want to contribute to a little bit of what everybody else was saying, and I feel like after film school, I just made one doc short, and it was like a 5-day shoot, and I sat and logged it for 5 years, and then I edited it and whatever. And then the immediate next thing was a feature doc, which took 7 years. Showgirls took 7 years to make, and I think that it's very different from like not strategic at all, where it was to not ask permission from the industry, and the industry was not giving permission anyways, and it's so just like the very much just guerrilla on a train, just do what you need to do and give the project what it needs to give, and like not waiting for the many shorts to make the features, but just make the features, because that's all I've ever consumed. Also, like when I moved to Toronto, I was volunteering at TIFF in 2004 and volunteered and became seasonal staff to 2011, right? And so I think people do not think that we belonged here, but I always, you know, I was like, obviously we belong here, and you know, and I think that's also what I see in him. I just saw Shirkers, which is, I'm really like late to the game for Shirkers, but I feel like we're in that, so good. But I feel like when I watched your film last night and like the way we're creating, it's very much, we're in that magical realm of possibility and play where we, you know, in all your shorts kind of also, I saw that playfulness and that possibility, and like not trying to be anything and not trying to, you know, I'm this director, or I'm gonna make this kind of film. And that part of it is that we're filling such a, you know, we were coming from a context as like, creating stuff in countries or in cities that haven't had that cinematic moment yet, or like the identities that there's just, we get to do that. That's the magic of us now in this moment, who we are creating together. So I love that.
That's amazing, thank you. Yeah, and that's, yeah, exactly, and it's really, it is just, you know, kind of like you're kind of pushing the boulder just because, and I'm just thinking about how you're kind of like, you know, inventing the space as you go. I mean, it's kind of, there is kind of a, and that's something I think that playfulness of something in your work so far, and is present in Queen of My Dreams. It's like it has that energy of something kind of being invented before your eyes also.
Oh my God, I'm disassociating. I'm still processing everybody watching the film. Well, lots of people watching the film last night and yesterday I guess, for the first time. But I really appreciate what Anam was saying about like not trying to be a thing. Like I don't know film history the way I'm sure so many of you do or other people do, and I know Zarrar's, brain is just like knows the movies, and so it's like, well, what's funny to me, or what do I want to try? So I was just trying some things, and I don't know. There is something about like, I mean, as outsiders, and I think in some way we all are here. Like, we're not just one thing. And so sometimes when we think about like the art we create, why does that have to be just one thing? And the question in Hollywood and in the industry is often like, well, what's the genre? And it's got to be one thing, and it's got to be one style, and it's just got to be this. And it's like, well, why? Why do you have to put everything into a container that makes sense to you? Why can't you work just a little bit harder to understand what makes sense to so many others? And I think that is the kind of fire from within and the drive and the dream to kind of put onto the page. And I come from comedy, so there's a lot of comedy play and pieces. Like Edgar Wright is like an influence of like, I love like the whips and the moves and the quick cuts, and I'm like, that could be in a mother-daughter story, right? Why not? So that playfulness, and honestly, like, I think it's bananas that Andria and my other producers, Mark Tetro and Jason Lavangi, were like, yeah, that's cool, let's do that. And we'll go to Pakistan for 4 months and, not know where we are, but don't speak the language, but we're gonna eat dal chawal and parathas every day. Also, we shared like similar crew, like Carol Noronha was one of our producers as well, but Farjad Akhtar was also our first AD and just worked. Anyway, now I digress. I just was like, Farjad, are you here? That's a no.
We'll text him.
Yeah. We'll make sure. But it is. I mean, I think that I was just thinking about. Just the beginnings of these projects too, and I was just reminded of this, how I kind of feel like I was almost at the beginning of In Flames, because I think I was like around, I think I met you and Todd Brown like the same morning that you first met Todd Brown from XYZ, and you were like, and Todd was like, I want to, talk to Zarrar about his movie, and I guess just to kind of like, nuts and bolts for some of the audience, I'm sure are curious about what the, the kind of the inception points for these two features, and I guess starting with In Flames, like what was that beginning moment, or when you started this, did you know like, okay, it's time to write a feature? Or I mean, what was sort of the beginning for you?
In 2018, I made this short called Dia, and it was made with this producer, Minna Hussain, and she commissioned me to make the short, and it was the first time someone was giving me money to make a short film, and I'm like, oh my God, the miracle's arrived, And she was really adamant that it was going to be a fiction short film, and she had very little strings attached. It had to be about mental health in some loose capacity. So I wrote it about a young woman who like undergoes psychosis after losing her secret boyfriend. And after making that film, I realized that it was actually dealing with some personal stuff that I had experienced. Again, because I'm an Aquarius, I don't really know my feelings. I like witness them on the other side. And I wanted to come back to that world, and I felt like there was so much more to explore. And simultaneously, I was like, I think it ended up being a thriller when it was written as a drama. And I was like, that's very interesting, because it's so tense, and there's so much tension that's coming out of the fear that this young woman has and the fear that her whole family is experiencing. And then my journey through learning about film, also because I didn't go to film school, was like, I had a mentor at a lab where he's like, don't pay for film school. And I'm like, okay. And then he introduced me to like every single free lab and like fellowship across the world. So I was trained in like Busan and Locarno and Toronto, and really learning about cinema from like a global perspective and falling in love with global genre cinema, because it does so much for stories and storytellers who haven't necessarily been able to see themselves. Like filmmakers like Jordan Peele and his latest film and how he's inventive with genre. So I think similar to Queen of My Dreams, where we're able to take elements off that and use those for the psyche of our characters, I leaned into horror and you leaned into comedy, and I think that speaks about our personalities.
Don't worry, we're gonna have a great collaboration one day.
I'm down. And then I spent the years developing my shorts and developing my craft and developing the script. And then in the pandemic, when I was really rewriting the script, because my process is, and Anam knows this to her detriment, my first draft is terrible. And I throw it out, and then I start again from a page one rewrite. And I was doing that page one rewrite during the pandemic when, you know, everyone was being really brutally honest with each other because the world was ending, so like, why not? And the incredible women I knew, the performers, Bakhtaur Mazhar, who also plays the role of Fariha in the film, were being really honest and really vulnerable about their experiences, and me being like, interesting. And then using that and just kind of making the scares a little bit scarier because the reality was already really terrifying. And then, yeah, now we're here today with the film.
And so we'll come back. Actually, I'd love to hear also about, actually, for the Queen of My Dreams, because again, you already had a film called The Queen of My Dreams. I mean, was that something that you, when you first did that film, did you ever think, okay, this is something I'm going to return to, or there's something here that I might revisit, or, I mean, what was the relationship with that?
I mean, I feel like I'm dreaming constantly, and so I was like, yeah, maybe one day this will be a thing. But again, it didn't seem like a possibility. But after I did the short film, because I was an actor and doing theater in Chicago, I'd always actually dreamt of doing a one-person show. So I worked with some incredible people in Chicago to help develop a one-person show called Me, My Mom, and Sharmila, inspired by Sharmila Tagore. And that was also like working through trauma, like working through, you know, my relationship with my mother told through the touchstone of this iconic actress. And I performed the play, I performed it in Chicago, I performed it in other countries. I went to Pakistan and performed it in 3 cities. Ironically, Anam came with me, or met me in Pakistan, and
Doing a documentary of
documented the whole,
another film, and
yeah, documented the whole process. And Zarrar saw the play in,
Which is so weird now, actually. Yeah.
in Lahore, right?
Karachi.
In Karachi, saw the play in Karachi, and you know, that was an essential part of the journey. And I haven't really talked about this a lot, but I was like, why did it take me so, like, I still wasn't writing. I had never written a feature. I didn't still think of myself as like a screenplay writer. But the process of going to Pakistan, and Anam had documented all this. I was gonna make a documentary about going to Pakistan to do this play. And a really tragic thing happened while we were there. After we came back, is this incredible Pakistani activist who had done the Q&A and had become a friend of ours and a friend of mine, Sabine Mahmood, was tragically murdered. And so that documentary that we were making, it just didn't seem to matter anymore. And just really kind of, we had to put that aside, and you know, I was like, what am I doing? Why are we doing any of this? Like, what matters? And so then there was another friend came in, and she kind of took over the documentary and made it about how my life and this incredible artist, this incredible activist, Sabine Mahmood's life, how we kind of, our lives crossed through this play. This is the circuitous story to getting to the movie, but I just had to take a break. I finally realized recently, I was like, I couldn't think about a movie anymore because the play it was hard because of what happened. And then eventually, you know, I can talk about the writing some more after the writer's strike is over and we get a fair contract, but because I'm in the WGA. But, you know, it was finding collaborators and figuring out how to do that work to write, and it changed a lot. And I think part of the reason it changed was because I changed and what I was working through was changing. And I didn't need the final film to be working through what it was doing in the short film. The film that's here was able to just be what it wanted to be. And so I think it was able to live in the fantasy a little bit more.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm always reminded of this story, which is a great story that Michael Ondaatje tells in this in this book with Walter Murch called "The Conversation," and he has this moment in the book where he talks about someone asking about the English Patient, about why did this happen towards the end of the English Patient, or why did this person do this thing, and his answer was like, oh, I don't know, and it was kind of like, well, it kind of just like, it's just about how when you're working on a project this, like, especially on this sort of scale, it's like you maybe make some early decisions, but those decisions necessitate all the way down the line. It just sort of, it creates itself to some degree, right? So that's always, especially when you're kind of coming to something as, especially if you are engaging a lot of other people with a project like this. So I'm not sure if that's exactly a question, but I got some nods. Yeah, it's sort of, it becomes its own thing, right? Yeah, and I think there's that, and same for, I mean, certainly you see that with In Flames too. So anyway, I have so much more I want to talk about, but I want to make sure we get some time with you, the audience, for things that are coming to mind for you. We do have some microphones. And so people will come over as you raise your hands and things you'd like to ask and share. Oh, and when you do have a question, please stand up too, so people can. I know where you are as well. Oh, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Juliet. I'm a film studies student. Question for everybody, but specifically Fawzia. I was wondering, how did you navigate the intersectionality of your identity while you were trying to tell your stories through your art? I'm also a queer artist and mixed, and I'm trying to figure out how to navigate all of that, and I'm fascinated by your films.
I don't know how I navigated it, but in reflection, it was just do it and process later. I don't know. That's not advice. I think that's just what happened. But it's like I was just like, if I'm queer, then I don't know what to do. So I'm just gonna be queer in my work. And that's how I'm gonna be out there, and that's how I'm gonna tell people, and that's how I'm gonna come out, and that's how I'm gonna survive. So that was, yeah, I guess that it just kind of happened, and then suddenly I was out, and it made me feel better, and it made me feel more confident, and made me feel like I could keep going, and now I just can't imagine any other way to be, you know?
I mean, I also think that, like, speaking on that, like, when you're younger, when I was younger, there was this burden of my identity of, like, being a Pakistani immigrant in Canada and then wanting to make a movie and having to make another immigrant movie. And I'm like, do we need more of that canon, you know? And it's like, just because that is part of my identity, there's so much intersectionality to your experiences. And also, experiences are universal. You know, we're seeing that with films like Parasite, like Queen of My Dreams, I hope with In Flames, where, like, you know, everyone loves, you know, everyone hates, everyone is political, everyone has crazy parents. So, you know, those are universal experiences. And if you lean into the things that can reach people across the medium of cinema, I think, you know, those are stories that I'm excited about and I hope is the direction of what intersectional cinema can look like.
I'm coming back to comedy and horror. I think that was such a great reminder. Like, I don't know, it's like comedy was my way to do that. It's like, oh, this is a way to be like, I'm gay, but I'm funny. Which I know is like weird and problematic in some ways, but also that's how I survived. And, you know, thinking about your work and like this horror path of it really, yeah. I don't know, it's fascinating. Comedy horror is next for all four of us.
I mean, yeah, Anam and I are processing that, that next project.
Like, yeah, sure, whatever you guys want.
Yeah.
Telefilm, is Telefilm here?
Are they in the room?
Are you in the room?
Where's the envelope?
Yeah.
I do want to say, like, I think what you expressed and what I have heard from everyone around that sort of outsider perspective, that outsider lens, like whatever that means, like it is a gift to this industry to have a diversity of perspectives. And this work and like the idea that all films aren't personal, you know, is garbage. Like everyone's telling their own story, you know? It's just that when your identity is politicized, then your films are also political, or your films are all, you know, like, so that's a reality, right? Everyone's trying to just tell their own story. And that's what these filmmakers are doing and the tools that they're, you know, using to do so. So I think, like, all work is identity driven to a degree. And in that way, all of your intersectional identities are a blessing as a creator, because you just have such a deeper well to pull from. And that's what I see with their work, and I hope for your work in the future.
All right, thanks. Got another question. Who has a mic if you want to just stand up?
Hello.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Hey guys, thanks so much for today. Zarrar, I just wanted to ask a little bit about, you were talking about being commissioned for a project and just how those people, I suppose, found you, how you presented yourself to get to that point, and I guess a question like just, you know, trying to find money, trying to find funding for our short films. Thanks. And for all of you, thank you.
I'm like very anti-imposter syndrome. And like very pro fake it till you make it. So I like took a like $500 loan from my dad, and I tried making a short film with that money, which was a 2-day shoot. And it was terrible, like just like the worst movie. I didn't know how to, like, I didn't know anything about how to make a film, but we had some really beautiful shots. So I was like, I could cut a sexy trailer. So I cut a trailer, and I did a Kickstarter, like everyone. And I said, oh, we only have like 1 or 2 scenes left to shoot, so help us finish the film. And that trailer went viral. We got $8,000. I paid back my dad, and now I had $7,500 to make a film with, you know? And that film was also terrible. But now I had made a film, and I had a trailer that went viral. So that producer found me through the viral trailer and kept asking for me to send her the link of the film. I never did. I was like, oh, Vimeo's not working, weird. So yeah, you know, definitely put yourself out there. The internet is your friend. Use the tools that you have, because now we have more access. And before, all these tools were gatekeep. Before, a cinema camera cost like $50,000. I mean, it still does. But like a reel, like it just wasn't possible for people of different backgrounds to make movies. Now, tools are cheaper. I'm not Scorsese, who's made like a $20 million or $120 million film, telling you to go make a film on your iPhone. That being said, I made a film on my iPhone. And that was the first version of what ended up being In Flames. So I am gonna say use the tools that you have at your disposal to get to where you need to get.
And I mean, you know, in terms of like shorts, I feel like, you know, I've kickstarted short films, and I remember raising $5,000 once, and I thought I was so rich. A short that, you know, one of the things that Anam and I worked on together was actually a short where I was like, hey, I'm in Pakistan for my brother's wedding, but I have 2 days before I fly back to Chicago. Do you want to make a movie on one of those days? And Anam was like,
call every few years. And I'm like, all right. Let's do it.
Yeah, and Anam's like, I have was it a DSLR or?
Yeah, it was a Canon 5D that I
Remember the days
borrowed
of the 5D?
from this place I was working at.
Yeah, and so we, then we like found a location, stole, and it was beautiful. And we just like, and I was like, I have this story about ghosts in Pakistan and like trauma, of course. and we just shot it. So it's like the range of ways to make a movie. To come back to, by the way, that was called Saya, which means shadow. You can find it online somewhere maybe. But one of the first short film that we made together, the way we got it from CBC, I mean, we got $10,000. I don't know if they still do this, CBC Gem, but I met with an executive who I think Andria had introduced me to, who was like, yeah, we have some money. And I directed, but not really. And so I was just trying to figure out, okay, I need to make short films that I've directed so that I can make a feature film that I direct. And we, it was just like building that relationship is how we got some money. And then I've made a couple other films through applying for programs, and some of these are in the U.S., but what was the one I did?
The Powder Keg, Paul Feig?
I did one. Paul Feig had a program called
Fuse.
Fuse.
Yeah.
Thank you. I look at everybody else for what I've done, but
it's a collective.
Yeah, it was like a queer and person of color directors incubator program, and they basically give you some money to make a short film, and that's how I made another short film. So really, some of these programs helped me advance and have something.
It's true. And a lot of those programs, they might be underwritten by like a corporate sponsor or something like that. And you might think, oh, well, there's these restrictions, or it can be challenging, but that's still your movie, and you get to go through the process of making a movie. And sometimes with those programs, the budget's like $50K or $100K, and you can really learn some cool stuff, use some great equipment, pay your friends well. Those can be really great opportunities, and there are quite a few of them now.
Actually, other questions. Oh yeah, please, Dan. Great, thanks.
Hi, my name is Joe. I love just how clear the love is between all of you guys and your work, and just the importance of the director-producer relationship. When it comes to building the team for these projects, how do you go about communicating your vision and empowering the crew to bring their best creative selves to the project?
I mean, I think it takes time. I think what we've built is a community, and it takes a lot of effort and a lot of just similar, like you were saying, similar vision, and I think similar values. I think the intentionality behind what you're doing beyond success is so important, and what you're in service to. We're all talking about our experiences and making really intimate, vulnerable cinema at the end of the day, but it's once you've made it, it's for everybody, and it's service to something, and to keep that in mind. And I think that's for the whole crew eventually, and especially for us shooting in Pakistan, where there isn't an indie scene necessarily, you're really asking a lot from every member of your crew to take that month out from well-paid gigs to come work on your project. So something beyond just the I don't know, the career, that aspect of it, I think is important.
I would also say, once you're putting out work regularly, the people who are attracted to your work, they probably align with your values, and they already part of them aligns with your vision. So that's also a part of growing as an artist and creating your network. It's not something that happens overnight. It actually takes so much time. And I've had creative partnerships where I'm like, well, I'm not hiring this person again, this is not good energy on set. But that was part of the process of growing and building my team. And I was making short films in Pakistan for 10 years, before I made my feature. And then we were making our feature. I was like, okay, now I want this guy, I want this first AC, I want this, I knew exactly who would be the right person for a film like this, just because I had been making the work in the same city under similar experiences of making independent cinema for a while. So, but that being said, I did have a DP who we brought in, who I had never met, but she'd shot 2 of my very close friends' films. And we met 3 weeks before we were shooting the film. And we spent that time eating, we did a food tour of Karachi. just like eating together and like talking about movies and like watching films together. And that was our way of like really developing how we're gonna speak on set. So I think it's like get to know your collaborator, and I think food is a universal way of bringing people together. Although she was like a vegetarian, like it was hard, you know?
There wasn't much she could eat.
There wasn't a lot she could eat in Karachi.
I think, I mean, I'm vegan and was in Karachi for 5 weeks, so I hear you. I think, you know, it's like people make movies, right? Like human beings make movies, and you have to live and work and care for each other to make a movie, because it's really, really hard. It's really, really hard whether you have $1 or $100 million. You're shooting in Pakistan, you're shooting in Canada. It's always going to be difficult. And I think one of what I see as a really important part of a producer's job in this collaboration is making sure that you're setting your director up for success by building the like range of experience and that diversity of perspectives in the team. When you're making a short, I think it's amazing to like bring in anyone who wants to be there. Like, if they have a little bit of experience, not a lot of, like bring them in, make the short. There's lots of room for that kind of run and gun kind of vibes when you're making a short. When you're making a feature, if you're shooting for 6 weeks, if you're traveling, if you're, you know, you do need some people that are more experienced in certain roles, especially depending on where your director's experience and strengths are. And Fawz can talk a little bit about that in this particular team if she wants to. But I think, you know, we recognize like the opportunity to, you know, our composer, for example, on this film was her first feature ever. And that was a role where we felt like, women are so underrepresented in composing, and we found this like badass queer South Asian woman who wanted to be our composer, and we were like, let's do it. But there were other roles in production where we recognized that we needed different skill levels and different experience levels. So I think having that in your mind, certainly as a producer, is really key, so that you are setting your creative partner up for success.
Well, and like, I don't know, just, I mean, this is obviously our experience up here, but I mean, because the Queen of My Dreams and In Flames shared crew, Zarrar and Anam's success and experience created the space for the Queen of My Dreams' success. Thank you.
And here I thought we were going to get to the session without crying again. Sorry.
I will bring it back to tears.
I think we have time for one more. We got time for one more. Oh, go ahead, please.
Hi, I'm Sol with POV Film. Shout out Zarrar.
POV.
Wow, POV. I had a question. Congratulations, all of you. So amazing. So looking forward to supporting you always. I wanted to know what the biggest adversities were for the whole pre-production, everything, and how you were able to overcome those adversities in the process. Thank you.
Great question. Thanks. Feels like a producer question for
I just looked right at Anam. I don't know why.
A talents to watch budget, maybe.
Talent to Watch is the micro budget first feature grant that Canada has, if anyone doesn't know.
COVID. Real life imitating art. I mean, it was, again, like we're operating in a space where we're inventing things out of nothing. COVID was like we had to reschedule on the day. We had an actor show up to set in the car saying, I think I have symptoms. I've had symptoms for 2 days. Okay, go home. We're shooting something else today. Was I not supposed to say that? Things happened. But it was, you know, we are used to, I guess, in a sense, just be on our toes and pivot. Just made it happen. Carol.
Carol?
One. Carol.
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 Where's Carol?
Not here. I think what, like, we had a similar question. Also, shout out POV Films. So happy you guys were all here. Hey. Like, we're a disaster-friendly crew. I don't know how else to say that. Like, we're used to things just going bad. You know, like, even in our shorts, I remember one time, like, an actor called and said, like, he needed his child to be babysat or he can't come to set. So I'm like, I'm gonna find a babysitter at 6 a.m. on a Sunday. You know, like, that, you know, like, that was our experience of making shorts. So when it was happening on the feature, it was just like, oh, we lost our location? We're shooting there day after tomorrow? We're shooting right now? Well, we're going location scouting on our one off day, and then we're gonna shoot that scene now 5 days later. And I think being open to disaster being your friend and those mistakes making your project better, especially when you're working on budgets, you know, like a Talent to Watch, where mistakes will happen and you have to always lean into those mistakes and make them part of your choices, you know, part of your aesthetic. And there's also sometimes a lot of beauty in that because, you know, one of our principal locations, which is this beach hut that it was pivotal to the film, we lost it because, like Anam was saying, like, I mean, we can talk about it now, it became a crime scene. And it was like cordoned off and we were supposed to shoot there in 2 days and we weren't allowed to. So, like, you know, like, we got on the beach and we went for a walk on the beach and I was like, oh, that looks like a nice hut. And then our locations guy was like, I'll go talk to them. And then we were shooting there a week later and it was like so much more beautiful than our original location. And I look at the footage now and I'm like, we got this location during the shoot. You know, and like our production design pivoted
It was
in real
definitely
time.
not a week later. We had to shoot there in 3 days.
Yeah, 3
Production
days.
design had to go in the next day to start building the set, please.
Yeah, I mean, everything is like rose tinted and, you know. Like,
You've
I remember
romanticized the trauma.
Yes. Beauty in the pain.
Yeah.
You know? But I mean, Queen of My Dreams is a period film in Karachi, in Nova Scotia. In Karachi, I shot a period short and it was my first migraine. So looking at that film, I was like, so beautiful, so tough.
Yeah, there's a lot of wires in Karachi that don't feel period specific to the 60s. Honestly, I mean, I think kind of coming back to something Andrea said earlier, like, movies are always gonna be hard. Like, they kind of are. Every day is, okay, you're going, I love to go into it with a positive attitude, but that positive attitude is what's gonna carry, I know, me through all of those challenges. Obviously for us, we did have this specific challenge of 2 different crews, travel, bringing cast in, our leads from Canada. I think one thing I wanna share was this idea of insurance and how it was impossible to find insurance.
Yeah, none of the North American companies wanted to insure film shooting in Pakistan.
They don't want to do it because they're like, it's so risky. The floods were awful in Pakistan, but they weren't happening where any of us were shooting our movie. They're like, it's so dangerous in Pakistan. And I'm like, I live in Los Angeles.
Yeah, we had a hurricane and an earthquake in the same day, like 3 weeks
We had a hurricane. That, you want to talk about, like, you know, and what it comes down to is racism. I mean, it's just racist. And so there are, I think there's these like, there's everything, I agree with everything you said, and it's true. I was thinking, as you were saying, it's like, oh yeah, we had this beautiful walk and talk in this beautiful park that only happened because something broke in a location we were supposed to be using, and so they were like, you guys can't come here because you broke this, and we were like, fuck, now what do we do? And it was better, you know, the result was better. But this is something, this insurance piece, I don't think people talk about it, and I think we were all impacted by it. And if you don't have insurance for your movie, you can't make a movie, no matter how much money you have. And so you're stuck. And so those kind of like systemic issues are still impacting you even when you have the funding. And I think that's something that we got to talk about, and we have to change those mindsets of the people who are making those risk assessments because it's risky to shoot in Toronto. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's risky to shoot in Hamilton because those same challenges happening in Pakistan happen on every movie ever, anywhere. Insurance.
And that's all the time we have. And I wish we had so much more time because, again, I might cry. But I'm so grateful for you for being here and for going through all you went through to make these movies because they're amazing films. And thank you so much. And thank you for being here to support us too. So, yeah.
Yes.